What's up guys, Slap Happy Frappy here, and today I want to talk about my weekly unique build, the Sword and Shield Paladin build. Now, I'm going to talk about first where I get the inspiration from. I got the inspiration, first of all, from my wife because she plays D&D. The second thing I got it from was a game I've been playing recently, which was Dragon Age. Alistair is one of my favorite, if not my favorite characters from the first Dragon Age game. Now we're going to talk about the equipment, and not even just what I chose, but why I also chose it. For a paladin, it is a holy knight, and there's not a lot of sword and shields that really fit that description. I did want to use a weapon that does thunder, because it is the closest thing to what I would consider holy damage in the game. The layered armor wasn't really a hard choice, it was just the knight's armor mixed with the Barioth armor. Now let's talk about the stats. So the raw damage attack is 432, 38 thunder, and only 10% affinity, and you'll see why here soon. And as you can tell, the defense is much higher than most of my builds. Now let's talk about the weapon, armor, and the augments. The weapon I chose was Rajang's instead of Furious. Furious really just didn't feel like it fit. And also, I believe the Furious one comes with a level 1 rampage slot, which is really bad. You need a level 2 rampage slot at the very least. But this weapon comes with 370 raw damage, 29 thunder, negative 10 affinity, with a 3 gem slot, a 2 rampage slot, and some white sharpness. Now, the augment for the weapon is plus 10 attack and plus 3 thunder, to give it that little bit of extra damage. Then I chose Teostra's helmet to help take care of that negative 10 affinity. And the augment I got for it was Blade Scale Hone level 1 and a plus 2 gem slot upgrade. The Blade Scale Hone is actually quite useful in this instance. It's not necessary, but it is a super useful skill, and it will give you sharpness back when you dodge, but it will only activate 50% of the time because there is only one level. Now for the chest piece, I chose Gold Rathian. The level 3 and level 2 gem slot is very nice. The 3 levels of Divine Blessing, which is specific for this build, and also Defiance. Now for the augment, I got some resistances, some defense, and 1 level of Blight Resistance, which is really what I needed for this build as well. Now for the gauntlets, I chose Malzeno, the Vampire Elder Dragon. And I chose it for the Wirebug Whisper, the attack boost, and the level 4 gem slot. Now this might be a little confusing because I earlier said that I need Blight Resistance, so why did I choose to get rid of it? Well, the foot piece comes with 2 levels, and with the way I had it set up, that this was just the best outcome. Before I even made this build, this was the augment I already had. The level 2 and level 1 gem slot upgrade is amazing, so I chose to stick with it. Now for the waist, I chose the Squire's Belt, mainly because of the level 3 gem slot, the 1 level of weakness exploit, the 1 level of crit boost, and the 1 level of offensive guard. Now for the augments, I got some minus in defense, but some resistance. I also got a level of sleep resistance and 1 level of weakness exploit, which is good because now I have 2 levels on my waist, and that is perfect. Resistances to any element, any status, or a blight is perfect for this build. Now for the feet, I chose Malzeno's, mainly because of the level 4 gem slot and the 2 1s, as well as 2 levels of blight resistance, a level of weakness exploit, and a level of attack boost. Now for the augment, I lost 6 defense, but I gained a level of crit boost, which is really good, and honestly probably the best augment I could get for it at the moment. Now for the talisman, I got a really, really good one. Not god tier, but a really good one. It comes with 3 levels of attack boost, and for gem slots, it's a level 3 and 2 level 1s, and that is really, really good. Now when the build is all said and done, you put in all of your jewels, you should have attack boost 7, defense boost 7, thunder attack 5, crit boost 4, defiance 4, crit boost 3, Weakness Exploit 3, Offensive Guard 3, Divine Blessing 3, Dragon Resistance 3, Blight Resistance 3, Poison Resistance 3, Counter Strike 2, Protective Polish 1, Sleep Resistance 1, Wirebug Whisperer 1, and Blade Scale Hone 1. Now, what I've decided to do for these videos is that I will have 3 test monster dummies, kind of like how Rathian is typically your test dummy. Well, for these builds, I have to fight specific monsters that are weak to specific things, unless I'm doing raw damage builds. But I chose 3 drastically different monsters. The first monster I chose was Azuros. He is only slightly harder than the second monster I chose, but in my opinion, he can be more annoying, mainly because of his grab attack and his move where he likes to back it up and sit on you. So that's why I chose him first. Next, I chose the Great Azuchi. Great Azuchi is the easiest one of the 3, but has a lot of moves that are satisfying to counter, and also it teaches you to deal with more than one monster at a time, because Great Azuchi has normal Azuchis, 2 of them specifically, with him the entire time unless you kill them. Now the next and final monster I chose was the Elder Dragon Kushala Daora. Kushala Daora is probably one of the most defensive monsters in the game, because first of all, he's made of metal, so it makes sense. It's really hard to break any of his parts. It's hard to knock him out. It's just really hard in general to fight him for someone who's not super familiar with him, especially with a weapon that I am not 100% super familiar with, but I do really enjoy Sword and Shield, but I am not the most skilled person at using it. But he is satisfying to counter, but he also tests how familiar I am with the weapon and him as a monster. So he is, in my opinion, a perfect fit for this build as a test dummy. And the fact that I can and have sub-10'd a Kushala Daora with this build tells you how potent this build really is. Now let's talk about how this all comes together on a hunt. Now for Azuros, Defiance obviously does really nothing other than give me some defense when he gets enraged. He doesn't ignore roars because he really doesn't have one. Obviously, you could tell because he's Anomaly, normally he would really hurt, but because of the high defense that this build has, he potentially could not one-shot me anymore, which is good, because even Azuros could destroy you, especially because he's Anomaly. You could see that the attack boost and the Thunder attack gives pretty good damage, as you can see with the numbers, especially when I'm critting, which is only about 60% of the time, but when I do, it's really good. You may even see Offensive Guard trigger once or twice. And obviously with all the hunts, because I'm not a perfect hunter, you'll see Counter Strike go off, because basically how Counter Strike works is that when I get attacked or knocked back specifically, I would do temporarily more damage, which is really good. You can see Wirebug being used as well. Obviously, it makes it to where I keep the third Wirebug about 30% longer, if I remember the numbers correctly. Wirebug Whisperer level 1 is really good. 2 is not necessary, but for me, I mean, all levels of it is really good, but 1 and 3 are definitely the best ones. So for the rest of this Azuros hunt, I am going to leave you guys with it, and I will get back to you guys when we get to the Great Azuchi. I hope you enjoy the rest of the hunt. Now with the Great Azuchi, the hunt is going to be roughly the same skills are going to activate, other than Offensive Guard might activate more often just because I tend to counter more often with Great Azuchi. He's a lot easier to counter than Azuros is, at least in my opinion. A lot of his tail attacks that he uses more often are really easy to counter. He's a lot easier to knock out, which leaves him open for more damage, which is really good. And you'll notice that I probably do a lot more Perfect Rush during this hunt than when I was fighting Azoro. Now, the main difference between Azoros and the Great Azuchi is the smaller Azuchis. The smaller Azuchis duplicate or essentially mimic what the Great Azuchi is doing. A good example of this is an attack that is actually about to come up, but fortunately for me, they were paralyzed, which is good. It means I didn't have to deal with them, so I took that moment to do some damage to them, and hopefully kill them, but obviously I didn't, because they're a little tankier, obviously because it's master rank. And one thing I will say before I leave you with the rest of this segment, just, you know, I never really talk about what moves I use, at least with this build. I did with some previous ones, but basically with this build specifically, just play how you want, play what is fun. I mean, you don't even have to with the other builds where I recommend it. It's always a recommendation. It's never you must have, you know, because this is just what I prefer. This is how I play, even if it's not the most optimal, you know, in terms of damage. It's the way I enjoy playing this. So keep that in mind, that that's how you should play the game. That's how you should always play, whether you're going with a themed build or whether you're just trying to have fun or do something random or just trying to do new things. So I'm going to leave you with the rest of the hunt. Now let's talk about Kushala Daora and how this build works against him. I think actually that all the skills come in handy against him, especially Defiance. So essentially how Defiance works is when a monster becomes enraged, you ignore all their roars. If you're at 5 levels, this build is only at 4, but still, it still ignores all roars. Anyways, I actually believe that at level 5, it ignores other things that I cannot clearly remember. But regardless, all skills come into play against this monster. And he is not the most hardest Elder Dragon, but he is weak to Thunder, and I thought this would be perfect. He is a good way to test my countering, my perfect guards, and my dodging for Blade Scale Hone. Not that I don't think I even got it off once, which is fine. Now, to explain Kushala Daora just a little bit, he's a metal Elder Dragon that does ice when he does specific attacks. He also does dragon, only with one attack, which is this one right here. Very, very potent move. As you can see, it wiped out a lot of my health. Even when I guarded, it did a pretty good chunk. But it is very satisfied to counter. But his whole gimmick is not his element, but his wind, which back in World, it was really annoying. But in this game, it's not as bad, in my opinion. I mean, I don't mind it nearly as much. I feel like there's a lot more ways to deal with it. And his Master Rank version specifically is, to me, he seems more tame than he did in World / Iceborne. Which, again, is a good thing. He isn't spamming tornadoes all the time. I don't know if maybe I just always get lucky, but he just doesn't always spam it. There would be times where he might throw a tornado and then maybe throw out another one, but he's never really spamming it for me, which is good. But I'm going to leave you guys with the rest of this hunt. I hope you guys really enjoyed this build. And one thing I want to say before I go is that I've decided that every Saturday I will not be posting videos, just for the purpose that I want to spend that day with my family. And I'm sure you guys understand. And it is my first day off of the week because I work Monday through Friday. So again, hope you guys really enjoy the rest of this hunt. Goodbye.